Hi, Nigel here with the Drive Wire, and this is the 2022 VW Arteon R-Line SEL model, and it is a very stylish coupe-like sedan that's been given more power, more torque, and a better transmission, and it's absolutely transformed it into a great car. So the last Arteon I tested was a 2021 model, and it had a detuned Golf R engine, was a bit underwhelming from a performance perspective, and it just wasn't enough power to be able to carry a car of this weight. However, today I'm going to review this car, the 2022 model. I'm going to tell you why you should get this over a crossover or an SUV. So sadly, sedans and to some degree coupes are a dying breed, and despite the fact that this is one of the best looking cars you can buy today, they've only sold 12,000 of them since 2019. So let's put that into perspective. For a VW Tiguan, for the same date range from 2019, they've sold 370,000 of those. So as I said, it is a seriously good looking car. This clamshell hood to these sort of flared design elements on this car. It's certainly the best looking car in VW's lineup and one of the best looking cars on sale today, in my opinion. You can probably tell as well, it's got quite a long wheelbase, and it's actually quite long. It's about 16 feet in total, and that provides you with a lot of space in the back, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. Pricing on this SEL R-Line model, which comes with these really nifty looking wheels, is $47,350, including destination. Again, this is not the top spec one. You can get the premium SEL R-Line, and that gives you a few added features like a powered liftgate. So we already know that sedans and coupes handle and ride and just do everything better from a performance perspective and are more fun than SUVs and crossovers. But why would you buy this over a crossover? Not quite sure why people buy crossovers in the first place when I only ever see one person in them at any time, but this is the reason. Check this out. It's a hatchback with a huge amount of space. So this has a very spacious trunk, 27 cubic feet of space. You actually get a spare wheel under there, but the best part is you can remove this luggage cover. A couple of little things there, pull it out, and then you can fold the rear seats down. Now you have almost 60 cubic feet of space in the back. Yes, understandably, it's not a high-roofed vehicle, so these seats, there's no room for these seats to go completely flat, but it is very, very spacious indeed. So as I mentioned earlier, it does come with these quite tasty 20-inch rims. Now, they are the only option available on this car. $695 gets you these. I would probably opt for them. I think they look really, really good. You also get these Continental Pro Contact All Seasons. These are really good tires, but I think I would prefer to get summer tires, especially in Southern California. It never rains here, and I think the summer tires would just give you a little bit of extra grip. But so far, so good. These have been actually really, really good. So under the hood, you get a 4-cylinder turbo engine directly from the Golf R. It cranks out 300 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque, little bit down on the Golf R, but pretty much the same, up from the old 2021 model, which only had 268 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds. It makes a huge difference to this car. Now, with all-wheel drive and the help of launch control and a brand new 7-speed DSG, which trades out for the 8-speed on the old model, 0 to 60 comes up in less than 5 seconds. It's about 1.1 seconds quicker than the outgoing model. So just because it has a Golf R engine, don't expect it to do what the Golf R does. The chassis has pretty much been tuned for comfort. It's a longer wheelbase. It's more luxury than sporty. And you've got to remember that it doesn't have those trick clutches that the Golf R uses to be so incredibly good in the turns. And even if you have the dampers in their most aggressive setting, which is sport mode, it still rides a lot softer than the Golf R. So that long wheelbase gives you a ton of space. Now this chair's in the position that I would drive in. This one's actually almost all the way back, and there's still a ton of space in the back. And these seats aren't bad. They're pretty comfortable. You get the leather. They're pretty nice. They don't actually go back, but they're pretty much raked back enough that you'll be okay with this. There's a decent amount of headroom. You can see that they've sculpted out a little bit here to create a little bit more headroom. You've got a couple of lights in the back and some AC HVAC vents as well. Yeah, I could spend some time in here. Inside is typically VW, typically Germanic. It's a little bit stark, but there's some design elements that look kind of cool. There's some of this sort of metal style trim, a lot of piano black, which is not my favorite, but it is very well made, very solid, almost Audi-like quality. These seats are good. They're really long in the seat area. These have memory. You get pretty much all the bells and whistles on this one, so unless you really can't lift that tailgate, stick with the SEL R-Line instead of the Premium. Nice steering wheel. It's sort of squared off at the bottom. It has an R badge. Technically, that's allowed because it is basically an R model car because it has the R engine up front. Yeah, it's a super nice place to be. A little bit of storage in the center console, but yeah, I can't complain. So I like the design of the dash, particularly the center console. It's integrated into the dash. It's not just some stick-up thing. It also has swipe capabilities. Makes a whooshing noise when you move your hand across. Again, there are these irritating sort of slidey controls that aren't actual physical buttons, but they're not too bad to use because they're not integrated into the actual screen itself, so you can sort of rest your hand on here and move those. So HVAC is down here, and then this is your pretty simple to use infotainment system. You can go into car settings, you can change, you can look at tire pressures, vehicle status, etc. Main menu, telephone, radio, sound systems, vehicle, and then you got a ton of stuff that you can go here. Digital cockpit, you can make changes to that, see what your driving data looks like. Click that one. I'm averaging 15.6 miles to the gallon, but it isn't good. This car is expected to do around 30 on the highway, but I've been hammering it because that's what we do. And then a little bit of range right there as well. It is very simple, quick to use. And then a little bit down here, you've got your stop start, and you've got your mode system, so you can toggle through modes. You've got eco, normal, sport, and custom. Again, they're not the most aggressive, but you can adjust these. You can adjust the DCC. I have it in sport mode. Steering drivetrain, that's your adaptive cruise control on sport. Light assist, climate control, etc. I've been driving it mostly in normal mode or comfort mode. It really doesn't make a lot of difference when you put it in sport. It just weightens up the steering a little bit, but it works. It feels great to drive, and we will drive it pretty soon. Further down here, we've got a couple of cup holders, 12 volt. There's a wireless charger here with a little cover to it. It's really nicely designed. All right, well, let's go ahead and drive it. Got it in sport mode and S with the lever here. So let's go and see how this drives. Now, this is a little route that I'm going to take, which will basically take us on some 2-lane roads with fast sweeping bends rather than super tight turns. This isn't a Golf R. And then we'll jump on the freeway and see how it handles on the freeway. So acceleration is so much better. It's only really a 30 horsepower improvement over the old car, but the way the old car was geared with that 8-speed just didn't have enough power. With this DSG though, it is amazing. Yeah, it's got a long wheelbase, it's quite a long car, but it handles really well. And then in sport mode, it's not particularly hard riding. Now you can go to individual mode and set those where you can make the steering lighter and the suspension hard, etc, etc. I just pressed sport mode and went with it. I'm not going to fiddle around with it. Once again, this is not a Golf R. It's got a Golf R motor in the front, but it's not a Golf R in handling wise. But on these roads, it handles really well. And now it has the power to match its chassis and its suspension. I do hear a couple of squeals now and then in hard turns from these Continentals that it's got on. They're good tires, but they're not good enough for this car's performance. This car's performance is massively improved over the old one. I mean, 1.1 second quicker to 60. You can feel that additional power and torque. There's almost 300 foot-pounds of torque. It goes. You know, steering is pretty good. It's pretty light, again, even in the most aggressive modes. There's not a lot of feedback from the front, but it's quite tight feeling, so pretty happy with that. Yeah, it's got so much more power to pass people now. It's very smooth too. The long wheelbase helps with that. This is a fairly bumpy kind of road. You can attack these corners at pretty high speed. There's some mid-corner bumps, but it doesn't get upset by those. And yeah, you can feel that the tires aren't great, but they're good enough for most people. And then, I mean, we're going uphill right now, and this thing pulls like a train. It's something the other car just couldn't do. The other car, technically, on paper, should have had almost similar performance to a GTI, but it didn't. It just didn't. It's very well balanced too. This 4Motion all-wheel drive system will kick in when it feels it needs power to the rear. It can only send up to 50% max to the back, but it's not a huge issue. Now, I did drive it a little bit hard earlier when we were doing some different video, and I did feel like the brakes got a little bit hot and did fade a little bit. So I had to sort of let them cool off before I did this particular segment. These are sharper turns here, and it does pretty well for a sort of pseudo-luxury coupe-like sedan. There isn't too much turbo lag. If you stomp on it from a stop, it sort of delays a little bit. But if you stomp on it to pass someone, the power comes in instantly. One thing that I did find with the Golf R and the GTIs, it does that little kind of noise for some reason, and it's like, it's just theatrics. You don't need that. You want to pass someone. You don't want that half a second delay before you get the power. It's nuts. One thing I can wholeheartedly say about this car, though, is it drives better than any other SUV at this price point. I mean, it's not an Alfa Romeo SUV, which is unbelievably good, but that's an exception. But anything else that you get that's this sort of size, that has this much, you know, room inside, it's not going to handle like this car. And of course, the engine sounds very much like the old Turbo 4 that VW and Audi have been using for years. So they made this car, actually, the last Audi A5 I tested has 270 horsepower. So a little bit less horsepower, but this feels quicker than that A5, and that A5 was pretty damn quick. So seats are comfortable. I like that they have the bolster at the back here for your back. They're leather. They don't get as hot as that vegan stuff that they often put on. Now this car is missing, it's got heated seats, but it doesn't have the cooled seats, which unfortunately I think you can only get if you order the premium one, which also includes that powered lift gate. But at least this leather sort of breathes a bit better, and it's a little bit cooler on your back, and it's not too bad today. It's around 82 degrees, so it shouldn't get too hot. But I really like how this thing drives now, man. I mean, its chassis was great before, but now with the additional power, it's a fun car to drive. Now, it hasn't been particularly economical because I've been stomping on the gas and I haven't really done any sort of like cruises down the highway. yet, so I'm not doing too well, but on a long run, you should expect to get close to 30 miles to the gallon with this car. All right, what do we think? Well, it is a hatchback. It has just as much practicality as an SUV or a crossover. It handles better, it's faster, it's more fun to drive. It's got huge amounts of rear legroom for passengers. It's all around a great car. I love this thing. Now, there are some rivals out there. The Genesis G80 doesn't have a hatch though, but is also a very good car. And then of course the other competitor that is a hatch is the A5 from within the VW group. Problem with that one is if you want to match what this one has in features and options, you got to pay a lot more money. So the conclusion is, save the sedans, please. They are a dying breed. This is a great car. There are other ones out there. The problem is no one is buying one. Go test this one out. Once again, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time with another video. Out.